Alright, so we're right where we left off from the last video when we created a simple title in AVID, probably the simplest way to create titles in AVID using the title tool application. We created a quickie lower third. It's not very pretty, but it gives you the idea. Since then, I wanted to stay organized, so I created a new bin and I named it titles in my project window, and I moved that title over, and so I'll show you that it's there and it has that little icon, that T for title. I'm going to go back to my regular bin with all my assets in there, and what I want to do now is talk a little bit about audio levels. So we're going to add an audio track that you'll be working on with this assignment later, the Saturn project. You'll get the idea of how to adjust audio and make sure that they're safe. Okay, so we're going to go to the audio bin and we're going to load this clip into the source window. And if we look, I've already created an in and an out, but I'm going to go to the very beginning and hit play. So there's a little beep giving us an indication that it started, and then you hear the music. Obviously, we don't want that beep inside our project, so I made an in after the beep and then right before the music starts, okay? And then at the very end, there's some dead space there that I got rid of as well. So we want to add this to our project in our sequence. When we look at our timeline, if we look, the left is only audio, so we only have audio 1 and audio 2 selected in the timeline. So we want to make sure video 2 is deselected, and we want to check where our position indicator is, that blue bar. If we add things in right now, it's going to add it right where that blue bar is. And we want to add it to the very beginning of our sequence. So I'm going to click on the timeline. If you have the home key on your keyboard, hit that and you'll go to the home. I'm going to do function left arrow to go back to the home button, and then I'm going to hit the letter V key on the keyboard, and this brings in our audio. I'm going to Command S to save the file.
Hi.
Okay, so you get the idea. Now, if you're, we didn't get a chance to show you, but let me show you now. If your timeline might look like this. Up at the very top in the timeline, if I come down a little bit, this little track control panel was smushed in. Okay, so we kind of look like this in the last movie. If we use this arrow, move it open, and then we can turn on the waveforms and you can see what's happening. Okay, it's a little easier. If they look a little too big, you can use Option Command K to make them smaller. They look like this. It's not very indicative of what's happening. So Option Command K helps you bring them down a little bit so you can see them, and you can tell like when he's taking a breath, when he's taking a pause. The Command S to save the file. So we want to see how loud he is, and if I play it, if we look over here, the little audio monitor volume, we can see if we see anything go red, that's a problem. It's red means that you're distorting the audio, and users might not be able to hear what that person is saying. So let's take a look, or listen really.
From Niverville, Manitoba, and honestly, I'm a chicken salesman. As part of my job, I do a fair bit of driving. In fact, I put over...
Okay, so see how it blinked red there? We don't want that to happen at all. So we want to make adjustments to the audio. And in a real world situation, we would have the voiceover on a separate audio tracks 1 and 2, and the background music on audios, say 3 and 4. Okay, but in this situation, the client just gave us one lump sum. We got voice and audio and background music all jumbled into one, so we got to make it work. So let's make it work. If I go up to the top here in my Windows menu, I can go to Workspaces and say Audio Editing. Click that, and we're going to move some things around just a wee bit. We got the audio mixer here, which we'll need, but we'll also need the Tools Audio Tool. I'm going to move that over. And let me see if you can see this. It's a little tight and I apologize. Just the way it goes. So the audio mixer is directly related to the timeline. So if I turn off A1 on the audio mixer, A1 in the timeline turns off, and same thing for A2. Okay, so keep that in mind. And then right in the audio mixer, we want to adjust audio 1 and audio 2 together. Okay, and to do that, we have to gang them together. And if we, let me zoom in to show you. It's a little bitty tool, little button. This little guy used to be called gang, now they've changed it to be called group. So if I click these on, now whatever I change to audio 1 will change on audio 2. So they're together, okay? So let's go back to the timeline, bring this open, We have our audio tool. Let's listen while we play, and we want, ideally again, it was just the voice, we would want him peaking or whoever's talking right around -14, never over 0, because then that's distortion, and not too low either, so we want to keep an eye. So let's take a listen.
Hi, my name.
So right when he says hi, it's way too loud. He peaked, okay? So let us, pardon the maneuvering here, let us play this and bring this down. So I'm going to bring it back down. I'm going to hit L to play, and then I'm going to bring these sliders on the audio mixer down, okay? So too loud.
Hi, my name is Calvin Haig from Niverville, Manitoba.
And you just have to bear with me here because
And honestly,
it's still a little too loud. I've reduced it by -2 decibels. Let's go to -4. Let's see if that will work.
hi, my name is Calvin Haig from Niverville, Manitoba. And honestly, I'm a chicken salesman.
And it's a little too loud still. So let's bring this down even more. Let's say -7. Let's try that.
Hi, my name is Calvin Haig from Niverville, Manitoba. And honestly, I'm a chicken salesman. As part of my job, I do a fair bit of driving. In fact,
It's still a little too high. So let's bring it down even more.
Hi, my name is Calvin Haig from Niverville, Manitoba. And honestly, I'm a chicken salesman.
Okay,
As part of my job,
not bad. It's still a little high, but we get the idea. I'm going to Command S to save the file. Let's say there might be an instance where you have some music and you need to, or even in the audio itself, you want to dip it down. You want to change it. So we have one file, but you need to change a certain thing. Let's see right here. Let's just take a listen.
As part of my job, I do a fair bit of driving. In fact, I put over 460,000 kilometers on my 1992 Saturn. Most of those kilometers.
Okay, so let's pretend, let's say right here is something where we want to dip it. We want it to, like, dipping meaning to fade in the audio or fade it down or fade it up, okay? So let's say we want to fade in that area. So I'm going to use the scale bar on the timeline. What I want to do, we've identified this is the doink, doink, doink. All right, so right about there, and I think he says hi right there.
Hi.
Yeah, okay. So let's say we want to keyframe. So here's where we'll add a keyframe. If you're not familiar with keyframes, keyframe just changes a position, a parameter. So it goes from one thing to another. So first we have to identify what we want to keep. So, and then we also need to tell AVID what we want to keyframe. So if we go right in the middle here, right in the timeline, right here, we're going to say we're going to keyframe the volume on both A1 and A2. Okay, let me zoom back out. And when we do, as long as keyframes down here are selected, this little button, you can use the apostrophe key on your keyboard to add a keyframe. So we know that at this level, because we corrected it, sort of, is where we want it to be. So I'm going to hit the apostrophe key on my keyboard, and it creates a little triangle. Hopefully you can see that. It's very little. And I'm also, so that's the level we want to stay at, but we want the first couple of, sound bites to be a little lower. So I'm going to put my position indicator probably around here. I'm going to use another keyframe using the apostrophe key, and then I'm going to click on that just with my mouse. I'll hold down Shift and click again. You notice that they turn pink. And I'm going to bring these guys down, and you notice that that little line coming down with it. So now I'm going to zoom back out, save the file, and now let's take a listen. So I'm going to Function N or Home on the keyboard. So you notice that it sort of fades up. Hopefully you can hear that. I'm going to bring these up just a little bit. So it's sort of a gradual fade. Sometimes you might want to do that. So adding keyframes to your audio clips are very important. If, like I said before, in a real world we'd have his voiceover on A1 and A2 and some background music on A2 and A3 and A4. If you wanted to create new audio tracks, right click and say add new audio track, okay, and or you can do Command U, and then you would add those tracks to the particular tracks you needed to change or edit, okay. So I'm going to command / to fit in the window, and you would go through and just see if you needed any other changes. Okay, so that's a little bit about making some minor changes in your audio. Thanks.